I gave my heart to Jesus on November the 3rd, 1978, and my life changed drastically right away. And one of the first things that I embraced was Christian music. At that time, one of the leading voices was Keith Green. I don't even know if people in later generations know of his music, but in the late 70s and early 80s, he was at the forefront. And he didn't like where the Christian music industry was going because it looked more like an industry instead of a ministry. He would sell his albums for whatever you could afford. If all you could afford was $1, then send him $1 and he'd send you an album. But he was more than an artist. He was the voice of a prophet to the generation he ministered to. He called people, he called the church back to basics of living for Christ. I remember being at a Washington for Jesus gathering, and many bands were there leading the church in singing their popular songs. And then Keith Green took the stage, and he rebuked everyone, because the purpose of the gathering was to fast and pray for the nation and the sins of the nation. And instead, it had been turned into a party. It was a very sobering moment. And then, at a very sad moment for the church of his day, he passed away prematurely in a plane crash in 1982 at the age of 28. Along with 11 other people, including his 3-year-old son and his 2-year-old daughter. I remember that day. I was on my way to work, and the radio was playing one of his songs. And when it got over, the radio announcer said that that was the late Keith Green, and went on to say that he had died that day. I cried. And when I got to work, this was before cell phones, when I got to work, I called my wife Diana and told her, and we both cried together. I don't know for sure why he had the impact on me that he did. Maybe because he was different. He didn't paint Christianity as some lovely blessing club, but as something that would change your whole world and cost you something every day, but that it was also centered around someone, Jesus, who loved you like no other, and that love was more beautiful than anything ever experienced before. One of his albums was called No Compromise, and the album cover showed a man, an official, a noble, back in the Bible days, being carried in a cart, and all the people around this man were bowing to the ground, but one man alone stood, refusing to bow, hence the name No Compromise. Diana and I liked it so much that we asked my brother's wife, Julie, who was a fine artist, to paint us a picture depicting that scene, and we still have it hanging in our family room. Here's a picture of the painting. We don't hear many prophetic voices today. I don't mean the kind that can tell you what's going to happen in the future. God does use prophets that way, but way more often in the Bible, the voice of the prophet is used to point out error, to tell you where your actions will lead you, to call you back to the straight and narrow, to say what you're doing is wrong, is sin, to say, this is the way, walk ye in it. The role of a prophet is not a popular one. Most people don't like to hear their sin being pointed out. They don't like their idols being identified and torn down. They don't like being reminded where they fell short or failed. I guess that's why in the Bible days the prophets were often killed. But just because we don't like it doesn't mean we don't need it. Having someone in our lives to help us stay on track is a wonderful gift, even if it's a gift that isn't pleasant when we receive it. And having someone to help keep the church on track can be extremely beneficial, even though it's extremely unpopular. Maybe that's why Keith Green was taken from us so young, because it's hard to keep living against the grain for long periods of time. But I'd encourage you to listen to some of his music, which you can find on YouTube, because for me, his message still ministers, like the song, "Make My Life a Prayer to You," and "Oh Lord, You're Beautiful." And some of it, like "Asleep in the Light" and "To Obey is Better Than Sacrifice," still stings. And sometimes a good stinging is just what we need. Love you guys.